This is the Fifth Estate Winning Headlines, your media police post. In this segment, we summarize some of the headlines that you might have missed this morning, and we take a look at the political pieces we call cartoons in this country. Today is the 18th of June, 2020, and I am DM.
I am JM.
And I am GK, and in case you missed the headlines, here they are. In the Daily Nation, UHURU's axe to fall on CS's parastatal chiefs. In the Standard, NASA dead. Ruto and Kalonzo join UHURU Raila axis. And in the Star, only UHURU spared in new anti-graft law.
Yes.
Let us begin with the Star, because I'm curious to see what UHURU has been spared from.
Yes, the Star is telling us that the president is tightening anti-corruption laws. There is a bill that was tabled at the National Assembly on Tuesday, and it has two main proposals. The first one is that state officers, including the deputy president, will be obliged to step aside if they are charged or if they're facing allegations of graft.
Yeah.
And they will step aside for 90 whole days. The second is that all graft cases will be or must be concluded within 2 years.
Wow.
So there the onus is on the judiciary.
Yeah.
Interesting to note also are two things.
Yep.
That only the president is exempt from this law.
He is above the law in this
He's
case.
above, yes, but rightfully so, because even constitutionally, he's the only person in the republic who is protected. You cannot institute legal proceedings against the president.
Yeah.
The second interesting thing to note is who sponsored the bill at in the National Assembly, none other than Majority Leader Aden Duale.
Yes, showing his loyalty.
Absolutely. He's having a very Judas Iscariot moment and has to demonstrate very strongly where his loyalties lie. And what he's doing now is sewing that rope, or putting together that rope that is going to hang his former ally.
So might we see the reemergence of Kim Warrer and Aurora type scandals? Because if all it takes is to charge, you don't actually have to be convicted.
You don't
just have to be suspected.
Convicted. You don't even have to be charged. If there are allegations against you that are related to graft, then you are obliged to set aside. The danger in this, to step aside rather. The danger in this bill, in my view, is that, of course, like everything else in this country, it's going to be highly politicized.
Of course.
Absolutely.
And because it's going to be highly politicized, it's going to be very paralyzing. There are allegations against you, whether they are true or not. You step aside for 3 months.
Wow.
90 days.
And they can do this for the next 2 years. If he is saying that the graft has to be dealt with by the judiciary in these 2 years, this is easier than impeachment because you just have to keep them busy in court.
Keep them busy, absolutely. Then you cause paralysis.
Interesting. So we have a 3-part criteria that we're going to use to break down the headlines. We will ask ourselves, is it topical or speculative? Is it repetitive or groundbreaking? And is it thoughtful or just plain lazy? I really like it. Very catchy. Let's pack it while we move to the Standard. So in the Standard, we have NASA dead, Ruto and Kalonzo join UHURU Raila axis. And this is coming off the back of yesterday when Kalonzo Musyoka signed a cooperation pact with the ruling party of Jubilee. So basically, the article goes on to tell us that NASA is dead once again. We've been saying this since the handshake. But however, it gives a caveat that legally, for NASA to be dead, 3 parties need to leave in order for it to actually be dissolved. Also present at that meeting yesterday was the soon-to-be Kalenjin kingpin, Isaac Ruto, of Chama Shinani, and also you saw Makwere, there were a bunch of other political people there. But the idea is that this agreement is to make Jubilee's agenda in the National Assembly and the Senate have a safe passage when you have this winning coalition. So far we have WIPA, we have KANU, we have CCM, and this sort of just strengthens the president's position should he want to do constitutional change or any other thing.
So he really wants to make the next 2 years smooth as possible.
Exactly.
And remember, the biggest cause of his headache when he in 2017 was none other than the same NASA that he has come together with now. And you're right, GK, NASA has died, resurrected, reincarnated, now it will haunt us.
You know, DM, I'm reminded of a quote, I believe it was by Winston Churchill, who said, in life you die once, but in politics you can die many times.
Yeah, indeed.
And this is the case with NASA, as you said. And so on to the Daily Nation, and this is a follow-up from the story in the Standard. The headline is Uhuru's axe to fall on CSs and parastatal chiefs. And so the Daily Nation speculates that after yesterday's coalition agreements with CCM and WIPA, this will now pave the way for a purge in the executive as well as in the parastatal by the president, and the idea there being to reward these newcomers as well as those in ODM with plum positions in either in cabinets or in parastatals. So we should expect that, is what the Nation is telling us. And lastly, the speculation that Kalonzo would join cabinet was denied, we're told. He said that that position would be ill-advised and really beneath him 2 years towards an election.
So it's beneath him because he's a party leader.
He's a party leader, precisely. He's a
all right.
principal.
All right, guys. So who do we give our winning headline? I feel like the Standard should go. It's a bit convoluted.
I like the Star.
Star?
Yeah.
Okay. Maybe we can go with the Star as our winning headline. Onto the political pieces that we call cartoons in this country, where we also have a 3-part criteria. We ask ourselves, is it humorous or dry? Is it satirical or pessimistic? And is it effective or just plain lazy?
So with the Daily Nation, we have a caricature of Senator Orengo and Murkomen. Orengo's holding up a map-ridden government, and Murkomen is holding a map that reads opposition, and a compass lay open beside them with the points reading truth, justice and integrity. And Murkomen says, I suspect we are lost. And that speaks to the irony of the tables having turned in the last few weeks. Those who were once in government now find themselves really in the opposition.
Yeah.
But perhaps a deeper meaning could be that this could be a moral compass. And maybe people are looking for morality and they can't find it. So
the compass is broken.
They're so neck deep in the things of this world.
Yeah. I like that they've swapped, where once Murkomen was in the opposition, now is, in government is now in the opposition.
Yeah, so they're both holding maps that they can't comprehend, is why they are lost. Very witty. It's a witty cartoon.
Okay, so in the Standard, Gado is back this week, and he's drawn a hospital setting in which laying on the bed is perhaps a Kenyan who looks very sickly and very hungry and not well off. And on the board there, the doctor's board, it says the economy, and you can see the economy is not doing so well. However, there is a nurse there, or a doctor, who is trying to resuscitate the Kenyan economy, and is doing so using the budget briefcase, as you can see. So I think it's late because we read the budget last week.
I want to suggest that nurse is Ukuri Atani. But also looking very perturbed and confused. With the country lying beside, there next to him. Suffering from COVID. Suffering. So I don't know. It's late for me, so it's out. In the Star, we have yet again a political bed. I don't know how many beds we'll see in cartoons before 2022. Very many. This time it is Musyoka in his pajamas entering into bed, where Gideon, Raila and Uhuru are already lying down, getting ready for bedtime. But on the top of the bed at the headboard is Ruto in his yellow pajamas, suggesting that he is in his URP affiliated. But also, I feel like this cartoon is infantilizing Ruto because he's wearing, those onesies that babies wear. Yes, a jumpsuit. A jumpsuit, and this is a true commentary. You know what? With this, coming together of the big boys, we are seeing a numerical browbeating. Yeah, it is. There's also, this thing is dichotomous. There's either the president is consolidating power in order to achieve his singular agenda of completing his 2 terms and realizing his legacy. Or, of course, it's banding together with an immediate purpose of crowding Ruto out, as he has been in this bed and has nowhere to go but the headboard. Yeah, and this is what consociationalism looks like. You put everyone in the bed and you try and do democracy.
The caricature that I would challenge our cartoonists to move on to, people like Ozone, is that of the Pro Box or the Matatu presidency versus the Ferrari presidency.
So we leave the bed alone.
We leave the bed. It's tired now. But that one would also be quite captivating.
So who do we give our winning cartoon, guys? It's between, I think for me, the Star or the Daily Nation with the moral compass.
I think the Daily Nation is very witty, it is very true, and it has many layers of commentary.
I'm with you there. The Daily Nation gives us our winning cartoon. And what is our final thought?
And now our final thought. It's inspired by the book The Slave's Cause, A History of Abolition, written in 2016 by Manisha Sinha, who is an Indian-American historian. Sinha in this book discusses the abolition of slavery in America and delves into the history of it, but in a significantly different way. She's moved away from how it is typically discussed and sheds light on those people that are generally ignored by historians. So typically, history books paint abolitionists as white bourgeoisie men. But in this book, she turns the notion on its head and gives a comprehensive scope of who the abolitionists really were. She writes that they transcended race, they transcended gender, and they even transcended the free and the enslaved people. So she's also talking about the role of the slaves themselves in abolishing slavery. She describes how slave revolts, not only in America, but in other places like Haiti, contributed to the abolition of slavery. Now, the brilliance of this book, in my view, lies in debunking the concept of racial paternalism. Now, when you look at the history of any struggle, especially struggles of liberation, you find that either the oppressor or people who look very much like the oppressor usually end up being the heroes who save the oppressed, who deliver them from the oppression, or who grant freedom. For instance, in Kenya, colonialism, the British would like people to believe that they granted us independence and not that the independence was fought for and taken.
Yeah.
So this is a really brilliant aspect of this book. Now, as mentioned, she gives a wide spectrum of abolitionists, including preachers, immigrants, black and white people, the free, the slaves, even Native Americans. One of the abolitionists that is featured in this book is compared to the biblical Moses, even though she is a woman, called Harriet Tubman. Now, Tubman was a pioneering woman who was a slave herself. And after she managed to free herself and escape slavery, she had the bravery to go back to her space of oppression with the sole intention of freeing other slaves. And she did this over 10 times. In the end, she helped hundreds of slaves into their liberty. Now, we don't have enough time to get into her story, which is really remarkable and fascinating, but I'd like to recommend a movie about her called Harriet. It was made in 2019, starring Cynthia Erivo, and it's very, very...
It was very powerful.
Powerful.
So I looked at some parts of the book. It's a 600-page book. It's really long. So I wouldn't tell you that I read the whole thing, But I was intrigued by the Republican Party. Now, the Republican Party was actually the anti-slavery party, which is, you wouldn't fathom that now, knowing what the Republican Party looks like in the Trump era, right? So the Republican Party is often called the GOP, or the Grand Old Party, and is one of the two major political parties. So you have the Democrats and the Republicans. But it was founded in 1854 as a coalition actually opposing the extension of slavery into Western territories. And so Black Republicans became sort of the political wing of the abolition movement. So the early Republican Party actually consisted of lots of African Americans, northern white Protestants, businessmen, farmers, professionals, factory workers. And if you contrast that now to the GOP you see today, it's very conservative, very elite, very,
Rich white men.
Yes, rich white men. So at that time, in the 1850s to 60s, the Republican Party has this Black presence, but it was falling short of, the abolitionist ideals, which are outlined in the book. And so they weren't advocating for the immediate abolition. So in 1860, you have Lincoln becoming the candidate. And in order to broaden his electoral appeal, he sort of started to dilute some of these ideals that the abolitionists had really looked to the Republican Party to champion. So today you see a Republican Party that is quite conservative and not very friendly to the Black wants and needs. But I feel like the black people were left without a true party, because the Democrats of the slavery times were actually the southern slave owners. So the Democrats weren't also truly pro-black African American. And today you have a situation where they're going into an election in 2020, and the black African American feels homeless. They feel like they don't know where they belong. Are you with Trump's side or are you with Biden's side, where they say, the Democrats aren't really speaking to their interests anymore? Anyway, back to the book. The book is, like DM has said, shows how black people were really integral to the movement. I'll outline 2 or 3 things. So one is that black abolitionists allegedly or repeatedly introduced crucial elements of ideology and strategy. So again, it wasn't just from the white man, it wasn't just from Lincoln. A lot of black people had something to do with this movement. But also, Americans have a lot to thank these abolitionists. For one, they championed a more egalitarian economy, and they championed a more inclusive democracy. And so they really insisted on black citizenship, that duty. Abolitionists also spoke of human rights decades before you heard of the United Nations, right? They insisted that the natural rights to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness asserted by the revolutionary generation were not limited to white people. They were the common heritage of all. And lastly, they deserve tremendous credit because they held America to its ideals. They said, listen, they invented languages to attack racist inequality and devised cultural and political strategies to get heard. And if you look at the Black Lives Movement now, there's a huge debate. Should we riot? Should we, do non-violence? Should there be protests? But I think try everything. I think you have to try everything to get heard and to make change.
And one of the things that they could do is form a coalition with the Hispanics. One of the reasons why black people in America are persecuted with impunity is because they're a minority community. But the projections from the United States Census Bureau now says that by the year 2045, and this will project on your screen, by the year 2045, America will be majority minority.
Wow.
So in other words, the minority communities will actually have reached about 50%, will constitute 50% of the American population. And so if they band together with the Hispanics and other multicultural societies, they may end up forming their own party.
Exactly.
And taking
Find a
over.
home.
So 25 years.
In 25 years.
To wait.
They should just persevere for just a bit longer.
But
let me turn to a black abolitionist, a man by the name Frederick Douglass. Again, a very kind of white name. Yesterday I mentioned
you thought Wilberforce.
Wilberforce. William, was a black man. So Frederick Douglass, a black abolitionist, a very popular fellow. And let me just give you his story and his contribution to the abolitionist cause. And so he was born, we're told, in Maryland, in a farm in the year 1818, born to a mother who was a slave. But at the age of 8, they moved to the city of Baltimore in Maryland, and he became a city slave, which was a major thing because city slaves were treated almost like free men compared to countryside slaves who suffered inhumane hardships on the fields. And so there he learned to read and to write for a short while. But Baltimore was also a special place for black people because it had about 17,000 free black people, we're told. So it was an environment where he could nurture his abolitionist ambitions, which he did. And in his struggle day to day, he met a lady by the name Anna Murray, who would later become his wife. And together they hatched a plan for escape. And so at the age of 20, this lady, Anna, helped him disguise himself as a sailor and flee the city of Baltimore to New York City, where he began life anew, but as a fugitive. And so in a short space of time, we're told Douglas's talents as an orator were being recognized in his church. And that caught the attention of a prominent abolitionist by the name William Lloyd Garrison. So I was a white man, and he was an editor of an abolitionist newspaper known as The Liberator. And so Garrison for a long time used to organize fora for him to go and speak at, and he managed to do very well. So 2 years after he escaped from Baltimore, he addressed a largely white audience, and he really wowed them, and that was his breakthrough moment. And so we're told from then on he got this grand national and international stature as a prominent abolitionist. But he was still a fugitive, and so for quite a number of years, for almost a decade after his release, he constantly had that fear of being appropriated again by his slave master. So what he did, he took off to the UK, where he could, live a free man. And there, a few sympathizers put together some money so that they could pay off his slave master for him to attain freedom. And that they did successfully. And he came back in the late 1850s or thereabouts. And then during the American Civil War, which began in 1861, Douglass formed a unique relationship with President Abraham Lincoln over the course of that war. And he became a sort of silent advisor, a confidant on abolitionist matters. And so he nudged Lincoln to commit to the promise of full emancipation of the slaves. And so in the year 1864, it finally happened. The Emancipation Proclamation was announced, and that law declared that all slaves would be free upon the victory of the North and the subsequent reunification of the country. And so that relationship went on. It was a great one, but unfortunately, the agenda that him and Lincoln had hatched after the Emancipation Proclamation was short-circuited, as you know, after Lincoln was assassinated in the year 1865. A fun fact, due to his eloquence and his many speaking engagements, Douglass was the most photographed American of the 19th century, we're told. Great contributions, remarkable ones from a black man.
Fantastic.
So interesting.
So on a day where we had a winning cartoon from the Daily Nation, please toss the rest, yes. And a winning headline from the Star, I'll toss mine as well. I want to leave you with this. Everyone has a history. What you do with it is up to you. Some repeat it, some learn from it. The really special ones use it to help somebody else. So use your history to help somebody else. Subscribe to our channel on YouTube, but also find us on TV. We're on GoTV, Pan to Air.